How's it going, guys? This is Andre from Team Lit and welcome back to another Team Lit video. So as we move to States this Saturday, I just want to thank AIFS for hosting the event and also hosting it at Bracken Park Community Hall, so we have enough space to chill and relax while we have that arduous day of dueling ahead of us. The next thing I'm going to do is thank our subs. Thanks for all the support, guys, and we hope to do many more giveaways as well as many more different types of content for you guys. So let's get into it, guys. So the deck I think will be the most represented at States at the highest level will be Super Heavy Samurai. The engine is very small, it makes a very impactful board. Also, because the engine is small, it can play a lot of hand traps. Secondly, I think Pearly will be a very good contender. It also plays a small engine that leaves space for hand traps, but instead of making a big board, it sits on one monster that has multiple interruptions and is very hard to out. Thirdly, we have MathMech. MathMech also has a very small engine, so there's room for hand traps, but also it creates a monster that can rip your hand and field, as well as having a single negate, and it can do this very consistently. Then we have Cash. Cash can either zone lock you or make a Rise Heart and a single interruption. A Rise Heart destroys decks that require the graveyard. Also, they main deck Shifter, which can be a problem. Sprites lost a lot of power and recovery with the loss of Sprite Elf, but it's very consistent and can play a lot of hand traps, so you need to be careful of Sprites. Scareclaw also has a very small engine with room for hand traps. It sits on a single monster that's unaffected by monsters in defense mode, so it puts all monsters on the field in defense mode, so it can only be affected by links, more or less, spells and traps. Every format needs a trap deck, and this format has two, so Labyrinth and Trap Trick. So Trap Trick is more of a combo deck that has back row in it, and Labyrinth's a trap deck that can combo. The newer builds of Labyrinth are playing hand traps, and the older builds are playing floodgates, and Trap Tricks are keeping to their normal trap card theme. Sword Soul is a deck from a previous format that's very powerful and can run hand traps. And Punk Gold Pride is also very strong and can run hand traps. So I think the underlying factor is that decks that can play hand traps in the main are doing well because they're preventing the other decks from playing, because the boards they're building are so impactful that you can't break them with board breakers. So I just want to review some of their good hand traps. So Ghost Ogre is really good against super heavies, as well as certain instances Sprite. Ash is good against everything, but you need to know where the choke points of each deck are. Droll is really good against super heavies, and in certain situations is good against almost every deck. Not many decks can play Shifter, but the ones that can, for example, Labyrinth can even cook through Shifter, as well as Cash. Gamma is just probably the best hand trap in the format, especially with Excel, Synchron, and Baron to follow up if you Gamma on your turn. And it can get rid of bodies, as well as negating the monster effect, and the bodies prevent linked ones from making your opponent gain advantage. Nub is very strong, so every deck basically summons about 5 times and can be hit by Nub. And Nub also gives you a body to cook within your turn. The Kaiju is very strong against Purely specifically, as well as Cash. Lava Golem and Sphere Mode are for the decks that build the board, so basically good against Gold Pride, Punk, Sword Soul, sometimes Albaz, Branded, definitely Super Heavy, and definitely Cash. Santa Claus and Kurikara serve the same function, with Kurikara being way more effective against Cash than anything else. Deck Lockdown is seen play. It's a kind of a new floodgate in the format, so it prevents your opponent, or prevents neither player can add cards from their deck to their hand or special summon monsters from the deck. So because you can activate this card after you combo, you can prevent your opponent from playing and they still have to play through your board. D-Barrier will still be a bit prevalent because there are still decks that do one specific thing like Sword Soul, Albaz, Trap Trick. They stick to their guns. So what I think will be the most prevalent decks are Trap Trick and Branded. So these two are kind of cheap to build, and especially Trap Trick because it came in a structure deck, and they're very impactful for their price. And as this is Africa, there's not a lot of people with a lot of cash to splash on the newer decks, and they'll take their time building the stronger decks. So I think you'll see a lot of Trap Trick and a lot of Branded. There's also a lot of rogue decks in South Africa, so be careful of heroes. Obviously I'll be playing dinos and many other more rogue decks. Even Flunder players might pitch up. Book of Eclipse. Book of Eclipse is good against fusion decks and synchro decks because monsters can be flipped, as well as cash. Encore is specifically for Pearly if you want to get rid of Noir, as well as Herald of the Abyss, but this can also have a dual function against cash to get rid of Arise Heart. Evenly is recently reprinted in a structure deck, so there'll be a really high amount of new players playing it. Lightning Storm, obviously good against back row and good against rogue. In terms of floodgates, I think Anti-Spell and Skill Drain, since Skill Drain is now cheaper in a common preprint. And Anti-Spell is just generally good against basically all the decks in the format, and it's especially good against super heavies. Purely has a lot of quick play spells, so they can play around it in a way, but in general every single deck on this list is hit in some way by Anti-Spell. Anyway guys, thanks for listening to my 2 cents. If you have anything to comment or add, please comment below, and please sub, like. Thank you guys.